This is the I Love Success podcast. I'm Peter Jumrukovski, and I have made a vow to myself to help as many people as possible to achieve their dreams. Let's get started. Hey guys, and welcome back to the I Love Success podcast. This is the podcast where I meet the coolest and most successful people on the planet and share their stories. I'm glad to be on this journey together with you. What started as an idea has now become the start of a movement. My mission is to help 10 million people in 10 years to achieve their dreams. I can't do it myself, and because of that, I'm so grateful to all my amazing guests and listeners from all over the world. Thank you. Get ready to get inspired because here we go. But before we get started, let's give it up to our new sponsor, Panos Emporio. Panos Emporio is Scandinavia's leading swimwear brand and has over 30 years of experience in swimwear. The company was founded in Sweden in 1986 by fashion designer Panos Papadopoulos. Panos Emporio is characterized by innovation and distinct design that breeds style, quality, and individuality. All Panos Emporio products combine simplicity and sophisticated clean lines with outstanding quality and fit. Panos Emporio offers bikinis, swimsuits, swim shorts, briefs, cover-ups, accessories, along with a fragrance collection inspired by Paradise Islands. The brand has a worldwide loyal customer base with dedicated followers ranging from Hollywood stars and top celebrity models to world-famous athletes and royal families. Go to panos.com to learn more. Today's guest is the youngest Latina in the world, 200 marathons. She ran her first marathon at age 14, crossing the finish line hand in hand with her father. That was the start of a never-ending love story. Since then, she completed 137 marathons, 78 half marathons, 14 ultras, and 5 Ironmans around the world, frequently in the top. Her parents came to the United States from Ecuador a few months before she was born, and she has now become a beacon of hope for many immigrants to believe that they can also go for big goals. She says, "I want to show them anything can be done, no matter what their background." Let's welcome the incredibly inspiring Nadia Ruiz to the I Love Success podcast. Hey Nadia.
Hi.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're here, and I read a lot about you, and to finally sit here eye to eye, I think we're gonna have some fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
So let's start with Nadia as a person. Who are you really as a person?
Well, I come from an immigrant family. We're from very humble beginnings, and I think the number one thing that is very important to us as an immigrant family is family and unity. And since my parents did come here a few months before my birth, we were very poor. My dad had to juggle 2-3 jobs, learn English, and learn his trade. He's a union electrician now, but he had to learn the whole language all over again, go through training all over again. Same thing with my mom. And so just seeing them basically leave everything behind, leave family, money, come with nothing, and start from nothing, and be so passionate and driven to try to provide and build a home, that go after that American dream for their kids. I'm the middle child. I have an older sister who's 7 years older and a younger brother who's 7 years younger. So they always instilled in us very young that hard work will work, and as long as you just keep at it every single day. So I saw that from just a young child over and over and over. So it became a very important kind of a theme in our family.
That's beautiful. Family is indeed important, and I think a lot of families that come from another country, they keep those values because they have done this big journey as a family. Do you know? Do you want to talk us through why your family decided to come here? And
it was an opportunity. My mom is actually from the country, so she was very poor in Ecuador. And she's one of 9. My dad's one of 9, and she had an opportunity where she had some cousins that are like, we're gonna try to immigrate to America because there's these promise of dreams and promise of work, and try to get ourselves out of this struggle that we're having here and see where it can take us. And so she took that the opportunity to go. And my dad was actually a little shocked by it. He's like, "What, you're leaving Ecuador? You're leaving?" And we had my sister. She was 7 at the time. So my mom says, "I want to try. I want to try and go after this dream. And I'd love for you to join, but if, I'm going to go and do it." This woman by herself came, seeing that courage, taking a little girl with her. And my dad said, "Okay." And after a couple months, he's like, "I got to follow her. I got to follow my wife. I got to follow my woman and do the same as she's doing." She had the courage to do that. So he came, and then I was born. And it was just, that struggle of growing up together in a poor environment. I remember that I think I was probably 4 or 5. There was a time where we were sharing an apartment with one of their cousins, and we were sleeping on one mattress in the bedroom of their cousin. I mean, it was that much of a struggle, when we were growing up. But like the thing that no matter how hard and how much we struggled, my dad especially always said, "You dedicate yourself and you become 100% in your education, because that's your investment in yourself. You do whatever it is that you do 110%. You just give everything that you have and do the best that you can." So like that message, because I didn't do sports when I was little. I didn't do none of the team community sports. My sister and my brother did, actually. They started when they were 4 or 5. I didn't. I was just so enthralled with reading and drawing and just learning. I loved learning.
Beautiful. And have you been back to Ecuador?
Yeah, so the first time I went back was when I was 9 years old. My mom, it took a process for my mom then to get legalized, become a resident, and both my parents are now legal residents, and so now they were able to then travel back and bring back gifts and donations to their family. And for the first time, our extended family saw American-born children. It was me and my younger brother. So it was a beautiful experience as a 9-year-old to kind of see a different world. And I had grown up in America, even though we weren't an affluent or a rich family. But when I went back, I just saw the humility more, just so much appreciation, so much love, so much unity in such a huge family. I didn't realize how big of an extended family I had. So I went back at 9, and then I was like, I really like traveling. I really like seeing and learning about different cultures and different worlds out there, because I think the more you learn, the more you expose yourself to the differences out there, you're more accepting, you're more understanding of the differences that are out there. So I go back. I try to go back and visit family probably every 2 to 3 years.
That's great. And I think you're right that the part with traveling and seeing the world, it opens so many doors, and you get to realize that there's good and bad people of all nationalities, and you can see. I love that when I travel, because I meet good people everywhere, and it's hard. Sometimes you think we're different just because we don't look the same, but I don't think it's about that. It's more about where people are different because of they read different things, they have different interests, different passions. I don't think it's about color of your skin or gender
And that's what I think is a beautiful thing about traveling, is that the more you travel, the more you see, the more you learn, the more you hear, the more you realize how much you don't know, how much there is to explore out there, and to really put everything together and see like, wow, you are, this small in this big world, and how can you make an impact, and how can you make a difference? And that's why I actually really do love traveling. And being as little as I was, the next trip that I took alone was probably when I was 10 or 11. My parents sent me to visit an uncle in Canada. It was in Toronto. But I was this little 10-year-old traveling on a plane by myself with an escort, of course, the flight escort. But it kind of having that independence, like, hey, I'm 10 years old and I'm traveling in the airport by myself to visit family and an uncle, and seeing, snow, having a real winter there, and it was great. And I was like, I want to see the world. I know there's so much to see. There's over 190 countries in the world, and I know there's more to see. There's more to learn. There's more to, and the more you learn, the more you can make an impact. The more you can either pass a message along or just experience it for yourself.
Yeah. What type of impact do you want to do in this world?
my major mission in my life has always been to just encourage, inspire, and motivate people to really find their internal fire. Like I strongly feel that everyone has that ability, that fire inside of them, and that story that they can tell, and that passion, or that drive and that fire that I feel. I want everyone to feel it. And I found mine, and it's not going to be the same. We have over 7 billion people on this planet, and every single person has a different fire, what lights them up. You know, there's something that lights a person up, and it's just, it takes trial and error to find what that is. And when you find it, just keep going after it. Do whatever it takes, because it's always going to light you up. And no matter like what's going on in your world, because we're all struggling with, we have all our own struggles with, whether it be stress, whether it be relationships with family, with, you know, finances, or things that are going around the world, the economy. You know, we all are impacted by that. But the way we approach it, our attitude, is really impacted on how internally we kind of formulate our own thoughts and formulate our own self-care, our own being, and our own like way of thinking. And that happens is when you have found that fire and you keep going, working towards it, because it gives you like that internal peace that you're like, hey, everything is going to be okay, because I'm accepting, and I'm accepting and saying I'm going to be positive today.
I love that. I'm going to be positive today. I think that's important. So let's talk a little bit about your family, your mom and dad. What do you think was the hardest part for them coming to America?
Probably the number one thing is leaving everything and knowing they're going into the unknown and starting over. And so I see so much courage in that. I mean, a lot of immigrant families do that, but I've never done that. There's been a period in my life where I've had to start all over, because you hit your certain rock bottom, or you hit your darkness, but making that conscious decision of really leaving everything you love, letting go of all material possessions, and just saying, I'm going to take this risk and this chance to start over and see if there's possibility to achieve something bigger and better. And it's not just for them, it was for their family, it was for their children, because at that time it was me and my sister. So, you know, that's that selfless act, and having that drive and power to just do that. And people ask me, like, what inspires you? How are you so motivated? You know, I've found my internal fire, but the number one motivation that I have is my parents. Just seeing them, how hard they work. It's a very empowering feeling that when I've seen what they've done, that it makes me like, hey, they've gone through this, they've done this, I can do this, I can go through this.
Is it important for you to make them proud?
It is. It is. I think that's probably a big driving force too. Just seeing my parents light up, because I just want them to feel that all their sacrifices were worth it. Yeah. And, you know, whether it be only my job out of the three of us, or it's all three of the children's job, yeah. I know I probably put more weight on my shoulders to try to be the best that I can in everything that I do. But it also does give me a certain self accomplishment and self-satisfaction that, hey, I achieved this, I was able to reach this. So it's part, I want to make my parents proud, but also just finding this invincibility within my own self.
Yeah. So let's start with your first marathon. Why did you want to do it, and why did you like it? Can you just walk us through that story?
It was actually by accident, because I used to compete in art competitions and math competitions when I was little, a little bit of dance competitions. And then when I was around 12 or 13, it was middle school, I was doing homework, and I love laying on the floor for some reason, just either to read a book or do my homework. And the TV was on, and it was during the fall. It was the Ironman World Championship went on, and they started showing, it's usually like a 2-hour broadcast. I'm like, what is this Ironman thing that they're talking about? I'd never heard of it before. I never really understood the concept of what a triathlon was, and, you know, to learn that, like, okay, a triathlon is a swim, bike, run, and the Ironman, by definition, is you swim 2.4 miles, you bike 112 miles, and then you run a marathon, which is 26.2 miles. So I just was like, wow. And, you know, you're always exposed to sports. You're always exposed to professional athletes who they're talented, but they also use their talent, and they work hard They probably train 40 hours a week when it comes to lifestyles and diet, and they compete. And that's what the Ironman world, there's a lot of elites there that qualify. But there also is a small percentage of just real people that are there that they don't do it for a living, but they just happen to win a lottery spot, or they qualified to be there. And, you know, they have their full-time job, they have their families, they have a story to share, and they're there only to prove to themselves that they can do it. And it's almost like a therapy for them. Like there were stories that I was listening to, like someone overcoming cancer, someone overcoming chemotherapy, someone overcoming divorce or loss in the family, like they just lost their father. You know, all these little just different stories that can affect all of us at any given time in our lives. And they were there punishing themselves through pain of an Ironman to kind of help them cope with the emotions that they were feeling, whatever they were going through in their life. And seeing that, and it wasn't just that race, it was the stories that they were sharing, that what it took to get there, what it took to get to that starting line, to prepare, that preparation of just working hard, sacrificing sleep, sacrificing time with family, sacrificing, you know, having to make all the payments that they had to pay, like, because it's an expensive sport as well. And that inspired me, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. You know, and then to see them start and finish, and with so much emotion, like, I want to do that. Like, I want to feel that. I want to understand and feel that, and prove to myself, here I am. Like, all I do is sit on my butt every day, do homework and read, and, you know, I want to see if I can, and I think I can. So I started to do a little bit of research and found out that you have to be 18 to do it. So I was like 12 or 13, and it's a pretty expensive sport. So I'm like, okay, I don't know how or why exactly, but I think I just had a good idea of how to set goals. There's like the SMART mnemonic of how to set goals. They have to be specific and measurable and accurate and that. And so I told myself at age 13, I'm like, I want to achieve an Ironman by the time I turn 27. Because logically in my head, I was like, I will finish high school, I will finish college, I will finish any professional school I decide at that point. I'll have a full-time job at least for a couple years. I'll buy my bike, and then I'll have a year of training. So I just told myself,
that's a long-term goal.
Yeah, but because I knew it was something that I wanted to do, it turned on a fire. Like, it just turned on something at that point. But I knew I was so academically driven, because I knew my parents told me, this is your ticket out. This is your ticket to be successful, is your education. So I knew I need to do that first. So that's why those were my stepwise, like my 4-year goal, my 8-year goal, my 10-year timeline, and it was just 27. Wow. And once I got to that, I was getting close to that age, I remembered what that little girl said when she was 13. Like, you said you were going to do an Ironman by your 27, so you better get at it. And I took care of everything beforehand, but it was that little fire at that point. So when I started high school, I was like, well, what do I do now? Like, there's swimming, there's biking, there's running. Biking is really expensive. I'm not going to get a bike right now, like a racing bike. What seems to be the cheapest and the easiest, I'll run. So I signed up for my first marathon when I was a freshman in high school. I had just joined the cross-country track and track in my freshman year with encouragement from my sister. She said, hey, you know what? I ran cross-country and track. Like, why don't you give it a try? Like, see if you like, there seems to be, like, you know, we're family. You have to have maybe something in you, you know, just go run. I'm like, okay. I ended up starting to run, and on our first dual meet, after, of course, a couple months of practice, just practicing, and on our first dual meet, I got first place for our school. And I got, I think, 3rd place overall or something. And I'm like, whoa, okay. There's a little innate talent here. But just like, you know, you hear over and over with any prominent figure, is that talent will only go so far. Like, you need to know how to apply it. You need to be willing to work at it, you know, on a daily basis to maximize your full potential. So I signed up for my first marathon, and I sat my parents down, and I explained to them, like, I want to do the LA Marathon. That was the only one I knew about at the time. Yeah. And I was 14. I signed up for it, and they were like, are you crazy? Are you nuts? Like, you just started cross country. You're just running 3-4 miles, you know, at a time. You're racing that, and you want to go jump to 26? And go, because I want to do an Ironman one day. And so I need to prove to myself I can do a marathon. So my dad's eyes lit up, And he said, well, if my daughter's going to do it, I'm going to do it. He was 40 years old at the time, never ran, never did, I don't know, no marathon before that, and said, well, I'm going to sign up with you and we'll do it. So cool. It was literally a month later, the race was coming up, and I was during cross country season. I was just running cross country. I wasn't doing any long distance runs, or didn't know what I was getting myself into. My dad and I, we started the race with cotton t-shirt, with like these regular shoes that are trainers, or not running shoes, or distance running shoes, just not knowing what we're doing. And I hadn't run more than 6 miles. My dad either. And we just put our goal in our head that we're going to do this marathon. We're going to finish, and we're going to see what happens. Sure enough, the adrenaline and the cortisol and everything, the excitement gets into you, and you start the race, but it kind of wears off in the middle. Yeah. And that's when you start feeling fatigue, and you start feeling pains that you don't even realize you can feel pain in places. And it was around mile 12 where my body had enough. It had enough. That was it. It was done. It was cramping. It was hurting. It wanted to stop. I sat on the curb. I started crying. I go, Dad, I'm way over my. I didn't train. I'm not ready. My body doesn't want to do it no more. It's it. But the power that my dad has in his mind is unreal. Like, I admire my dad so much, and he's taught me to be so mentally strong that it. Like, I look up to him this day, like how mentally strong he is, because you can apply that mental strength in different stages of your life. Yeah. And he told me at that moment, looking at me, he's like, you set this goal. You said you were going to do it. If you tell your mind right now that you're going to finish this, you can. Because whatever you tell your mind to do, your body will follow. Like, you commit. And I'm looking at him like you are not giving up. I'm not going to let you give up, because you're not going to let yourself give up. Like, okay, I'm crying, I'm in physical pain. I'm like, okay. So it was literally a limping all the way to the finish line.
That's a long limping, 14.2 miles limping.
That's just thinking of question. You start going through all these thoughts. Yeah. Why did I sign up for this? Or why am I feeling this pain? And then, other thoughts start to come into your head, like, oh my gosh. And as you're getting closer and closer to the finish line, you're like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to achieve this. When we saw that finish line, my dad, hand in hand, he held my hand. We crossed the finish line, raising it up high. And it was just this overwhelming feeling again of emotion. I was crying from emotion. Like, I did it. And I really thought I couldn't. I didn't train for this. But it was just that mental commitment to yourself, that mental commitment to somebody else, because I shared that goal with my dad. Because if I let myself down, I was also letting him down. And I didn't want that to happen. But both of us, we crossed together, him teary-eyed too. And it changed me forever, because it really showed me that really all things could be possible with the power of your mind.
I think it's a wonderful story. And what we can learn from this story also is that it's good to work in a team, right? And have someone that is strong. Because if you would have done this yourself, you might have given up. And there's so many people out there that try things, but they give up. So can you just talk us through how important do you think it is to have those people that can actually help you when you want to give up?
I think that sense of community is really important. You need to have someone that you love, or you respect, or you admire, or is willing to be your mentor, or just even if they're not giving so much to you, but they just inspire you. Like, follow everything that they do and see, like, find inspiration through them, and reach out to them if you can, if that's possible, so that they can guide you. Because my dad has been so crucial. My dad has been so crucial in the mental strengthening of myself, that has allowed me to apply myself in all things that I do, to achieve things outside of running, achieve outside of sports, because of that mental strength that he has raised me and he taught me so early on. And I think that's really, really important.
So what do you do if you don't have someone like that? How do you go after your dreams then?
There's so many resources out there, people out there who you can find inspiration with. Like, honestly, pick up autobiography after autobiography, biography. Like, I am a huge bookworm. I was when I was very little from the start. Like, you can find like inspiring stories. If that person can't be real, like right next to you in your life, you can create that person through the books that you read, because books have been like my therapy as well. Like, just reading biographies and inspirational self-help books, personal development books, reading the stories of people who have made it, but seeing the struggles that how they went through and overcame that, and finding, you know, bits and pieces of inspiration from that. Because that's where, because I mean, I'm not always going to my dad. I'm not always going to him and asking him, like, please motivate me, please. Like, no, because what does a parent do? They're supposed to serve and parent you and guide you, but to the certain point where you have to learn to do it yourself. You know, that's where, and if you can't do it yourself, then you reach that resource. And for me, that has been books. Books have helped me a lot.
It's incredible. I love reading, and that's what we're trying to do with this podcast as well, by sharing stories to give mentors and master classes to people they might be somewhere in Ecuador, right, or in Macedonia or Sweden or Japan, but they can listen, and you can get that fire, right, from someone else, and then try to apply it in your own life. So your first marathon, now we're sitting here, over 200 races. We're not going to talk about all of them, because I want to share your mental thoughts a lot, but let's just talk about this journey of doing the Ironman. Can you just share that? When did you do your first Ironman, and why was it so important to you?
Well, once I did that first marathon, I couldn't walk for like 2-3 weeks because I was so sore and not trained for it. And then I actually got a little bit in trouble from my cross country coach, because you're not really supposed to. It conflicts with, you know, a cross country training program. So I only did one a year, one marathon. I committed. I said, I love this LA marathon so much. My first marathon, I want to keep coming back every year. So my dad and I came back every single year. Through high school, and then through college, I took a little break from being competitive in sports, because I wanted to then develop my career and focus on my academics. And so I still did LA, but without any training again. And I knew I could do it because I knew my mind could do it. That was, now it's like now I'm empowered enough that I know my mind. If I don't even run a single day in the whole year, I know I can finish this marathon. I mean, it's going to hurt a lot, but I can do it. And once I finished undergrad, which was very, very, very difficult because of how competitive I am. I wanted to be the top of my class. I wanted to finish as fast as possible. And I only did that to save money, because I just didn't want to put any burden on my parents. I knew how hard they were, and I didn't want to be taking out tons of loans for college. I wanted to be this investment in myself. So I finished actually my undergrad degree in 3 years, my biology degree. And I didn't take out one single loan in my parents' name. I just didn't want them. I worked, I volunteered, I studied, and that was it. Like, the school was my life. Right after undergrad, I went into my master's to get master's in education. And then since my undergrad degree was a science degree and then my master's was in education, I found that I had a little bit more time during my master's to start regaining my health, because I let go of my health. During that time of being competitive in school, I lost a part of my identity. I was so passionate. I'm so passionate about being healthy. I'm so passionate about being active. It's just about movement. It's not so much, you need to look like the most fittest person out there. Like, no, absolutely not. It's just about feeling good about your own skin, how you feel on the inside, and feeling physically strong and mentally strong, of course, within your own skin. That can create so much joy. Like, just that internal joy. Like, that's why children love to play so much, because, you know, they have this internal joy of movement, this internal joy of just, you know, it's wonderful. It's a beautiful thing, and we lose that. We lose that joy of just playing. Yeah. So, you know, going back to graduate school, I had gained 40 pounds in undergrad, almost 40 pounds. And I mean, I'm not that tall. I'm like 5'6". And I make a joke about it sometimes now too. I'm like, I gained 40 pounds without being pregnant. You know, I gained all that weight. And I just didn't feel like me anymore. Okay. I was very depressed. I was very sad. I was very lethargic. I couldn't even go up a flight of stairs coming from a competitive background where I was achieving like first place, second place, a league champion, and going to CIF, and then I couldn't even go up a flight of stairs. I was just so sad within myself. And it made me question and think about a lot at that point in my life, because I should have been so happy because I finished undergrad in school at UCLA, debt-free. I was the top of my class with honors. Everything I published in undergrad, everything was going perfect on paper. But in my heart, it wasn't right. It just wasn't right, because I didn't feel like that internal fire and joy anymore. And I knew I needed that back. I needed to regain my health again. So that's what I did during graduate school. And it allowed me to finally start eating healthy again, be conscious of what I'm putting into my body. Because then I also, in undergrad, developed a very bad relationship with food. Because I was looking for comfort in food that you're not supposed to, and that's not supposed to just be, masking pain and emotional pain. So grad school was a very, very transitional moment in my life where I was able to redefine myself again. I never lost all 40 pounds. I only lost 20 of those pounds, but I was able to develop a new perspective and acceptance of my body, and accept and say, this is who I am now. This is the circumstance that I have now. And this is, I can be healthy and strong in the point I am in my life. And I am happy. I have my degree. I'm going to start teaching in my own classroom. My master's is done. My credentials done. Now I'm in a good place in my life. I'm in a good place. And then I started remembering my goal of the Ironman. That's where it started. That's where this whole journey started. Now at that point, it was about probably 10 years ago. Like, I was 23 at the time. Like, yeah, when you were 13, you said, it's like, okay, the clock's ticking. So let's start now working towards that goal. Let's sign up for your first triathlon, your little sprint triathlon. Let's buy your bike. Let's start, doing all those training and basically picking up at this point, because triathlon coaches are also pretty expensive. They can be. Ironman coaches, they can go up to $300 a month or more. And it was just not an expense that I wanted to incorporate on top of buying a bike, on top of buying everything. I'm like, I know I can teach myself. Let me see if I can coach myself and in this journey, and picking up books. Again, books. There are tons of, it's just having the discipline and desire to say, hey, I'm going to teach myself. I'm going to read this, and I'm not going to move until I really understand the concepts. Because that's why we do hire people to do things for us, because it facilitates it a little bit easier.
I love that. Sorry to interrupt you, but being resourceful, and that's something that you gain when you don't have money, right? You have the motivation to do something, but you don't have the money. Then you start thinking about all these resources. How can I do it? And you never, even though you had to take a side step to finish your education, you still had your goal back in your mind. And I love that. It reminds me of a story of a woman we had on the podcast, an astronaut, Anusha Ansari. She was drawing pictures of airspaces when she was a kid, and it took her more than 30 years to achieve that and going into space, but she did it. And I love what you're saying. Yeah, I had that goal and I gotta get back to it. You lost it somewhere on the way, which happens to a lot of us people. We have a goal and then we get caught up in other things that we have to do, but all of a sudden, wow, we need to get that fire back. And sometimes we don't have the money to do it. We don't have the resources, but we can do it anyway, right?
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
That really does apply. I mean, there's now, especially with social media and the internet, you can find everything you need. You can give yourself a degree online by reading and reading and reading. It's just having that focus and that real sharp focus on what is your goal, what is your reason. Like that's the biggest thing, because we all can create goals at any given time of our life, in a stage of our life, but those goals will never get achieved if you don't have a real internal fire, a real reason. Why am I gonna work so hard to achieve this goal? Because there's gonna be rough times on your journey, in your period of your life that's like, you know what, forget it, this is just not worth it. But who do you have to go to remind yourself here in your head, to remind yourself, like, no, this is the reason why I'm working so hard for this goal, and it really means this much to me, and I know what it means this much to me, and I'm gonna keep working at it. So like that's why, goal seeking and goal achieving and goal setting, it's a whole entire process. It's not just like, it might sound cliche, but It's not just about the destination or about the race or about just getting a degree, but it's about the whole journey and the process that it takes to get there. Embracing that process, because that process is really what changes you. It really does teach you so much about yourself and about whatever it is that you're going after and trying to achieve. And that's how my journey started. Once I finished grad school, I was like, okay, you know, I got my own place and I bought my own bike, and I'm like, okay, little by little. And then also another thing too, my dad always taught me to be very smart with my finances early on. And it's interesting, right when I graduated high school, that my first summer before going into school, I got my first full-time job. I worked at this little pizza place, and all I did on the weekends was read books. I picked up finance books. And I mean, it's unfortunate in high school. Yes, we take, you know, econ, but they don't teach you finances. They don't teach you like how to like really what is debt. Like how, you know, you don't want to be getting into the wrong debt. So yeah, you know,
it's crazy. What we don't learn that, and we don't learn goal setting. We don't learn confidence. We don't learn self knowledge. We don't learn any of those things in school, and those are the traits that will actually make you feel good, right?
And that was the thing I did when I was 17. And I got in the summer, I went to go pick up some finance books, like, you know, balancing your checkbook, balancing your finances, saving, like people just a credit card, like that, like all those things I just taught myself by reading intro books. It's literally just intro books. And like I was just always at the library or always at Barnes and Noble, and you know, and it was like this. For me, I would remind myself of like that scene in The Matrix, you know, when Neo, like he gets into this program, they keep putting all these like programs into him and he learns them in seconds. Yeah. For me, knowledge is wealth. Like I would love to have that program where you can just put knowledge and knowledge and knowledge and knowledge in my head, and then you formulate your own ideas. You create your own ideas. You create, it's just about seeing what's out there in the world and then creating your own. And that's what I loved about like books and reading, because I would pick and choose like all this information, because you know you can't always believe what you read. You can't always believe what you see. You can't, because not everything is consistent. But when you learn to see patterns, that's the biggest key, is patterns that will allow you to kind of put things together. I'm like, this is what will work for me. This is what might work for somebody else. You know, and you know it was those little life skills that I did early on. My dad told me, always have 6 months of savings for, you know, a rainy day, in case something happens. Okay. Always put away a percentage of your paycheck. Okay. And it's almost now shocking to me that people don't do that. Like they live paycheck to paycheck, and it doesn't matter how much you're earning. You can be earning $20,000 a year or 6 figures. It's just a behavior. It's a behavior of a concept of how we should save for rainy day, or how we should, you know, be mindful of living in the now, but also planning for the future at the same time. So what I did kind of set me up. Right when I finished grad school, I was in grad school, and I had my first full-time job. I worked for the UCLA School of Public Health, and then I went to go find another job because I saw my parents do that. When they started, they had 2-3 jobs. I'm like, well, then why can't I? Why can't I do that and be resourceful? You know, and I did. I was a personal assistant at Coldwell Banker in Beverly Hills. So I would go to school. I had my full-time job at UCLA, and then at nights I would go be a personal assistant at this firm. And I was working 80, 90 hours a week. And fortunately, I didn't have to deal with traffic because everything was close. I lived right across the street from UCLA. You know, Coldwell Banker was right, you know, just a 10-minute drive. So that eliminated from the time of wasting during the day. But really optimizing my day, optimizing and visualizing, I want to save. I want to save money so that I have a future for myself and set myself up for myself. Not be rich, but just be okay. And be able to then enjoy money when I finish school, when I start working and I'm teaching, because I'm setting myself up for that.
That's incredible. And we call, like, I don't know if you can say this in English, we call it the dog years. Sorry, Max.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Do you have to, like, if you want something that's really good, you will have to have a certain time in your life that you do those hard years.
And I think the key word right there is suffering, the word suffering. Like, you learn so much through suffering, whether it be physical suffering, emotional suffering, like a heartbreak, losing someone. You learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about how to cope. You know, if it's a financial suffering, you learn how to, you know, budget and save. Physical suffering, you learn about your internal strengths that you have, but learning how to suffer and embrace it and endure it, it's just, and then apply it. Like that is just a key thing, the whole process of it. Because I remember there was one year that my first year of my master's was probably my hardest year of just saving. I saved 80% of my paychecks. I worked 2 full-time jobs, and I went to my I was getting my master's, and I knew the following year I was going to be working, and then I'm getting my own classroom. So I knew what I wanted to do, and so I knew what it took. I was like, okay, if I really don't, I want to graduate debt-free, and if I really, you know, want to make sure that I could set myself up, it was just suffering. And I lived in an apartment. It was a 2-bedroom apartment with 5 girls total, and 4 of them had boyfriends. They were always over. I mean, it was a rough year. I didn't have a boyfriend. I never really had a boyfriend in undergrad or college, and they were always over. And I mean, I cannot wait to have my personal space. Yeah. I cannot wait to have my space. Like, just, and it's reminding yourself, like, while you're suffering and doing whatever it is, like, I wasn't going out, I wasn't, you know, doing none of that stuff because I was saving all my money. And I go, I will. Visualizing your goal, like what's going to take, all that suffering you're doing at that point, then to get there and reach it. And, you know, that helped set me up at that point. Once I started teaching, I'm like, great, now I had a salary, now I had my benefits, and then I was able to get my place, and then I was able to buy my bike, and then start my goal that I had told myself when I was 13 years old. The side goal was, I want to do an Ironman before I'm 27. And I started on that journey. I trained probably did my first my sprint triathlon. I probably trained for a good maybe year and a half or so. And again, reading books, the same thing. Learning how what it took to do a triathlon.
So you didn't have a trainer. You were your own trainer.
No, I trained myself.
Wow.
I wanted to train myself, and I wanted to, because I did do a little bit of research of like the triathlon coaches, and if I was going to train for 6 to 8 months at $300 to $500 a month, I'm like, no, that's not, and it's an expense that I can cover myself by reading, and I'm going to just read.
Yeah. And
suffer out there and learn. It's literally trial and error. Like, just, I was out there training and learning and falling and bonking and having these severe stomach pains and all these little things that were happening to my body, just learning. And I'm like, okay, now I see this process. And also, it was fear of failure. I didn't want to fail at something that I set so long ago. Yeah. Towing that line, like, I knew I need to prepare. And that preparation is so important. Like, when you arrive at the starting line, because, you know, this is a different ball game. It's not just a marathon. You're not just running. You're swimming, cycling, and running. And I'd seen videos, you know, those videos that kind of scare you, where people are collapsing from cramping and they're crawling across the finish line. I'm like, okay, I know that's very emotional, but at the same time, I don't want that to happen to me. So what can I do to prepare to avoid that from happening, and making sure I do everything? Because what they say is, you know, success is when preparation meets opportunity. And so you have to make sure you're prepared as much as you can in whatever that is you do. And when that opportunity arises, then you will succeed. Because there is really no such thing as good luck. It's just being prepared. And that Ironman taught me how to really be prepared, because I had a full-time job. You know, I had my bills and I had my responsibilities, and I was still, you know, then I started to re-socialize again and develop, you know, friendships, and finally start seeing my family again, and start not missing barbecues and family birthdays anymore, because I was missing a lot of those things. Those were sacrifices I had to give up. And, you know, just being like balanced, finding that certain balance. And that Ironman taught me so much about preparation, so much about suffering prior to getting to the starting line.
So where was the first Ironman?
The first one was in Sonoma County. It was called Vineman. Yeah. So it was before Ironman actually bought the event. So I think it was in 2011, I believe, when I finally did my first. So I committed, I signed up for it. And this one, it was a little cheaper than a regular Ironman, because it wasn't bought by Ironman yet. And I knew I wanted my family there. I really, really wanted my parents and my sister and my brother there. But it's like about an 8-hour drive up north. It's probably about an hour north of San Francisco. Yeah. So I was like, okay, now it's going to be a process to get my whole family there. For them, they'll take the time off and transport them. But as soon as I told them, they're like, we'll be there. be there for you. Like, okay, like, all right, I got everything set, my training, my gear, you know, my race is coming up, my family's gonna be there. And then sure enough, you know, I get thrown a wrench in, I don't know what you want to call it, just my world turned upside down. It was about a month before my Ironman, and my dad got diagnosed with cancer. Yeah. And I'm really close to my dad, very, very close to my dad. My dad, I admire him. He's my hero. He's everything to me. Both my parents are, but just my dad, like, you know, really close to my dad.
And so, he has done almost 50 marathons, right?
He's also
as a
done
supporter
60.
to you.
Yeah,
Wow.
and essentially, like, he fell in love with the sport, the marathoning sport, just as much as I did.
Yeah.
So, you know, he would take in as much as his body could, and of course, I was in my prime. I was like in my mid-20s, so I started marathoning a lot, and was racing way more than he was. But it was that diagnosis that just floored me. Like, everything stopped. Like, everything was on pause. Like, I didn't care about, like, I didn't want to go to work. I didn't want to, like, I don't want to sit there in the hospital for you. I want to be there. I want to just be in these moments. You know, they found stage 1 prostate cancer, and it was by accident, because they had done a blood test for another like a periodic procedure, and they found a factor that signified prostate cancer. And, you know, I was just so scared, crying a lot, and like, this goal of mine doesn't matter.
It's not
like,
important.
it doesn't matter important anymore, Dad. I'm gonna be here next to you. I'm gonna be here for your surgery, and, you know, your treatments. And he looked at me and said, no. So I'm gonna fight this. I'm gonna beat this. He's in that third line, he said, I'm gonna be there at the finish line for you. You know, and this is a month later, and, you know, he just got diagnosed with cancer. So he's like making that mental commitment, and me in my head, I'm like, do you not know what you're battling? But my God, you're this strong while you're battling this? How can I not be strong then? I have to be strong for my dad. Like, I have to. He's saying he's gonna be there at the finish line, so I better get my behind to the finish line.
Yeah.
You know, so that was it. That line right there. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. You know, we all, you know, fortunately the surgery went really well, no complications. They said it was clear for the moment. We didn't know for sure results, but they're like, okay, he's clear to go to race weekend with you. He's good. I'm like, okay. So we went, and it was an emotional day. Just everything it took to get there. From the moment of thinking of when I was 13, I realized this goal, to everything that happened in between, from school, from the sacrifice, from, you know, finances, from everything, and then my dad making that commitment to be there at the finish line for me. You know, he was there at the start, and I'm like, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to get to the finish line. I don't care if my body shuts down on me. If I can crawl, I'm crawling to this finish line. If I don't make the cutoff, I don't care. I'm getting to this finish line. Because this is my dad's waiting for me there. My family is waiting for me there. Yeah. You know, and I finished my first Ironman in 14 hours and 5 minutes. But coming down that chute, it was just that overwhelming joy of saying, I did it. Like, I did it, and I did it, and I didn't do it alone, because my family was there to supporting me. My parents were there to inspire me. And I ran into them across the finish line and ran right into their arms, like, each of them crying. You know, like, you did it, Mio, you did it. Like, you know, 14 hours of physical agonizing pain, but I did it. Like, and it was a very special day.
Can I just say, you're such a beautiful human being. You know, when you share all of this, and it's incredible, because the journey is not just the Ironman. I recognize my parents came from Macedonia to Sweden, so I recognize that immigrant journey and struggle, and being careful with every single penny, and finding solutions of how you can do things. And you didn't want to put a burden on your parents financially. So it's incredible, and I'm so glad you shared this here today. So it must have been such an amazing feeling
It was just an overwhelming sense of joy and pride. And people sometimes ask me where my nickname comes from, and it's funny. The day before my first Ironman, my mom gave me my nickname. We were in the expo picking up my bib, nervous and excited, and without me knowing, like, again, my family and I, we're not big on gifts. We're not big like on material possessions. It's more about experience and bond and connection and just creating those memories together. So what they got me for my Ironman was much more meaningful. Like my dad and my mom, they bought me these little emblems, you can put them on the back of your car, or like those little just simple emblems. And my dad got me an Ironman one to put it on my car, and my mom got me also, it said Iron Girl. And she's like, here you go, mija. The day before, said, no matter what happens tomorrow, you're my Iron Girl. You'll always be my Iron Girl because you are so strong. You're made of iron to me. Like, again, I'm like, how can I be weak when my parents are this big inspiration for me? So I put that emblem, the Iron Girl, on my bike, and it's on my bike to this day. And I still have my intro bike. I still have my beginner bike. I've gone through 5 Ironmans and then 11 half Ironmans and countless of triathlons, but it's just that bike. Like it has that Iron Girl, and then my emblems on my car. I have my license plate that says UCLA and the Ironman. Like those two things, like it took I know how much it took to get those things, and that's all I need. Little reminders of me, like that I can make it.
Yeah, I love that. And also it's good. I think one thing that I really love with you and what you're talking about is you have all these big goals. You want to inspire, you have this inner fire, but at the end of the day, family comes first to you, and you don't forget that, because there's a lot of immigrant stories where not only immigrant stories, it's very easy to forget your family, right? And a lot of people do that. And why do you think family is so important to you? And
it's all I knew growing up. It's all I knew. I didn't, you watch movies or you see your friends and your peers. They grow up with grandparents. They grow up with lots of cousins and lots of aunts and uncles, and I didn't have any of that. I didn't really have anything. I mean, I had one uncle that might have lived close by, and I had one uncle in Canada, but probably 80 to 70% of my extended family is in Ecuador, and they still are to this day. So it's didn't have that. My grandparents, they never lived here. They always lived in Ecuador. My paternal grandparents came to visit, and once I started traveling and visiting them, I started developing a relationship with them, but it wasn't a bond that I would see that other, grandchildren would have with their grandparents. And so basically my parents and my sister and my brother became everything to me, everything, and books. That was just the other, that's because I have a very, very like creative and huge imagination, that books helped kind of entertain my imagination.
So why are you good at suffering, Nadia? Why do you think you're so good at taking those? Because I think if we look at people that are very successful, and we can talk all day about what success is, but you had something in your mind that you wanted to achieve, and you went after it, and you were willing to suffer for a very long time to achieve that. So that's a great form of success to me. Why do you think you are so good at suffering, and do you have any tips for people? Might sound like a stupid question, but I think to get somewhere you need to learn how to suffer, right?
Yeah, definitely so. Definitely. And it's interesting how someone no one's ever posed it that way, where why are you good at suffering? I just know I am good at suffering, but I think the number one thing is I saw my parents suffer, and so I always saw them so strong in my life that I said, if they can suffer, I can suffer. I can suffer for my own goals or for my own pursuits, for my own endeavors. And so I also do coach athletes on the side as well. And so when I'm training them, I tell them, well, I'm not training you just physically, I'm also aiming to train you mentally, and to really learn that the times that you suffer are probably going to be your most learning experiences as we get you to that finish line, and to help you achieve your goal. Because it's a combination of the factors. It's a mental training, it's a physical training, and it's the willingness to accept the suffering. But I think that is number one, to see my parents suffer in their past, and again, suffering is not just, it doesn't only happen in the beginning of your journey. It comes in bursts, in cycles. And so being willing to adapt and embrace it and know how to, and me for seeing my parents, suffer in different stages of their lives and overcome it. Like for instance, at age, I think it was maybe 50 something when my dad got diagnosed with the cancer, I just seeing him suffer, but internalizing it and being strong so that he can be strong for us, so that we can be strong for him. So it's like those little kind of examples of seeing it and telling myself I could do it too. Because your power of your mind is amazing, an amazing tool. And you say, I can, I will, I am. You will formulate that. You will become that. You will draw that.
It's incredible. Your family seems incredible. Your mom had that courage to, I'm gonna go. You come or you not come. And your dad saw that, I'm gonna come too. He manned up, and then coming here and being such an inspiration, having that strength, because we all know to come to America and to work, to have 2-3 jobs, it's not an easy journey. It's a lot of struggle. So it's just incredible. So where do you see yourself now, 5-10 years from now? Do you have any new goals? You've done over 100 marathons. You were the youngest Latina in the world to accomplish that. So what else do you want to do?
A lot of my goals that I was setting for myself were set between my 20 and 30 age bracket. I'd worked so hard for so long and achieving certain different things in my life, and a turning point happened in my life when I was just before I turned 30, where my whole world again turned upside down. And I thought I had my whole life planned out. I had seen myself already at 35, 45, 50. But then, something happens where it's not going to turn out that way anymore. Yeah. And you have to start completely all over again.
What happened?
My relationship ended that I thought it was going to be for the rest of my life. And that was another thing too. Like, you learn to fall in love. I fell in love when I started teaching. Yeah. I was the most beautiful feeling. It was the most beautiful feeling. But then when you fall in love so deeply, you learn what it feels like to lose that. Yeah. To lose that. And once I lost it, I realized what people meant when they say half of you dies and you don't want the other half to survive anymore. Like, so what do you do with that other half? So it was just feeling like dead inside. Half of me was dead, and the other half, I'm like, what do I do now? Like, what? I don't see a future. I'm such a huge visualization person. I am such a huge planner that now everything, my world was pulled under me. I didn't see anything anymore, and that was so. On top of being heartbroken and broken inside, I didn't know how to overcome that. And having those feelings where you're so afraid as an adult, as a woman, and you have all these things accomplished, but you're still afraid, and you feel so little, you feel so scared. So it's a dark period that I remember. And sometimes even I understand now when people say, I just didn't want to continue anymore. I just didn't want to live anymore. I didn't want to. You feel like those suicidal thoughts, and it's scary. It really, really is scary. But the one thing that kept me going and keeping that half of me alive was, I can't hurt my parents. Yeah. Because I might give up, and if I give up, who am I going to hurt? Yeah. My parents. My siblings will probably make it. They're going to hurt too, but I'm sure the loss of a child is not something any parent can take. And I didn't want to do that to them. I go, no, I can't. I can't. I didn't work this hard, this long to just give up. And it took like 2 years of rehealing myself, redefining myself. And that was a really difficult thing, because I was so goal oriented. I was so I had everything planned out, and just feeling this different type of pain, this different type of suffering, of emotions, that it was now internalized in me, and learning how to rediscover myself. And
how did you come back?
Number one is you have to keep going and doing things that you're doing already, because you just, if not, you're going to be stuck in a bubble. And then also reaching out, because a lot of times I sometimes try to deal or struggle with things on my own, and this is one time in my life where I realized I can't do it alone. I mean, I trained for an Ironman alone. I did all those hours. A lot of people do group trainings and stuff. I did it all alone. I taught myself all alone. I got myself through college, all like this. So I kind of had that theme, but this was the one time in my life where I was hurting so much, and I felt almost so ashamed that I didn't know how to get myself out. And I mean, I tried to read for books. I tried to do everything that I had done in the past, but it wasn't really working. And reaching out to people who had gone through the same thing, who had gone through that suffering and divorce and just loss. And they understood what was going on. I'm like, oh, okay. It felt like a little bit of relief, even though it wasn't fixing me, but it was a little relief that I wasn't alone. Yeah. And I think that's a key thing. And I remember a few of them would tell me, like, yeah, Nadia, it's gonna take 3, 5, 6 years to overcome. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm gonna feel like this for 5, 6 years? Are you kidding me? I didn't understand it. The one thing they always say is time heals all wounds. I didn't believe it then. I'm like, you're crazy. Like, there's this wound is just, but it is true. If you keep focusing on healing, it's proactive. Everything has to be proactive. You gotta really focus on personal development again, and really focus on redefining yourself and recreating yourself. It is really recreating yourself all over again, and showing the possibility of becoming great again, and taking in that experience as a learning experience. And it was a learning experience.
Yeah, it's crazy with life. Sometimes you think you're ready for everything, and then something happens that you would never even prepare for your whole life. And even you, who has been through so much and been all over, it was like completely new experience, and you have to learn and relearn again. And I think that's life. And the good part is, if you have the mental strength, you can move past that and find a way back, just like you did. It's not easy, but it's life, and we never know what we will be handed. Like Forrest Gump said, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what's inside. And it's kind of crazy to say that, but that's why I think also one thing that you said in the interview, you said aim is important, but gratefulness is also important, to have some kind of balance between those. So I think that was something that I really took from you. It's like, wow, this is pretty cool. You can have goals and be grateful at the same time, right?
Yeah, definitely so.
Yeah. So I just have 2 more questions. I'm so glad that you shared all of this, and that you were so honest with everything, and I think this can help a lot of people. So the first question, let's play a little game. You're 87 years old. You're sitting in a rocking chair on your favorite spot. Maybe it's you overlooking the sea, or I don't know where, maybe it's in Ecuador, and you're just thinking back on your life. What do you want to see? What do you want to have done?
I want to see as many beautiful places and many beautiful people as I can, because I think you can just learn so much from it, and it just fills your heart, it fills your soul, it renews your soul. We are caught up in so much negativity in news media. We're caught in so much negativity sometimes within our own minds, that the more we can make a conscious effort of just filling our lives and filling our lives with just seeing beautiful things, having conversations and meeting beautiful people, and finding the beauty in everything. There's something beautiful in everything, that it can make you feel fulfilled. I've had these conversations with a couple people. Sometimes we'll have little round table conversations, You know, for me, like happiness is just peacefulness and joy and serenity. And I don't want to wait when I'm 87 for that to happen. I want it to happen now, and I'm doing that transition. That's why this decade of my life, my 20s was my decade of so much sacrifice and so much hard work and so much accomplishment, that now 30s is kind of opening my heart, opening my eyes, and embracing more of just now and internal joy and living basically what I want to live when I'm 87, but now in my 30s. I always tell my friends, like, when I was 20, I was 30. When I was 30, I was really 40. I was always kind of 10 years beyond my life on my timeline of what I've been doing. So now, if this is technically my 40s, I'd like to kind of enjoy it a little bit more and embracing that now and find that internal joy and seeing that beauty.
That's great. And I think that's something also, if you are a person, you have fought so much and struggled to accomplish this, accomplish that, and also have this drive, but maybe also a burden of making your family proud and don't bothering them with problems and stuff like that. So now it's your time to enjoy a little bit too. You have indeed accomplished a lot. So one last question that I ask all my guests is, what can they do after listening to this if they want to get started on their own dreams? What would be the first step that they can do to just get a little bit closer?
Start writing. Writing, don't expect anyone to read it except you. Write a letter to yourself. What is it that you want? What do you want right now? What do you want in a year? What do you want in 5 years? And what does that look like for you? I think when we write a letter to ourselves, share everything, just freely write. Who cares if there's grammar, if you gotta, curse, if you gotta do whatever it is, just allow your heart to pour onto paper. And it can be a very therapeutic and a Kickstarter to seeing what you really, how we're holding in, and you never knew that you had it inside of you.
Yeah, I love that. And I could sit here all day talking to you. This has been one of the most incredible conversations I've ever had with a human being. So thank you for being so beautiful, and thank you for sharing this honestly from your heart. It means a lot to me.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to thank you, everybody, to listening in to this podcast. And also a big thanks to our sponsor, Panos Emporio, Scandinavia's leading swimwear brand. Check them out at panos.com. If you like this podcast, share it with your friends and family, spread the word, and start doing the things that Nadia is talking about, because it can truly change your life as well. So thanks a lot, and see you guys soon. Thank you.